Virginia. I'm here to mainly talk about friendship with a friend, Liz Roberts. We were friends for a while before she met County Commissioner Stephen Deutsch, who is married. They started a love affair. He started taking her to the boat races when the boat races first started in Inglewood. He would take her to the fishery restaurant for dinner. He would go over to Dr. Asperella's house for dinners. Everywhere he would go, he would take her. He would be at her house at like 6 o'clock every morning for their bedroom time. Every afternoon he would be there. Sometimes at lunchtime he would be there. He would go out on the boat with Liz in her boat. And that is Liz Roberts. They would go to baseball games at the baseball field, which Liz took me to the baseball game, so I know for a fact that they were having a love affair. I've been at her house when he's been there. They're hugging, kissing, touching, going in the bedroom. He would even ask her to go to the church that him and his wife would go to and have her sit a few rows behind him and his wife so that him and her could make Google eyes at each other. And yes, I know that for a fact because Liz took me to the church with Barb Hamilton, her other friend, and would take us to the church to sit behind him and his wife so that him and her could make Google eyes. And then after church, he would drop his wife off and go over to Liz's house where we all were there. It was a love-hate relationship because they fought constantly. He was a very jealous, possessive man. If she didn't answer her phone, he would call her friend Barb Hamilton on her phone just to check Liz's whereabouts. He was very possessive, very flirtatious. Liz would go to the bathroom, but like I said, the commissioner's a married man, having this love affair with my friend. And my friend Barb and I kept telling Liz, stop, he's married. But she just kept on, and he kept on. He was very possessive, very powerful, and she would talk about all the powerful things that he would do that would run the county, shall we say. I have proof of that because after a while, I met Liz at a restaurant where she was getting a to-go order. The commissioner was at her house waiting on her. She was at the restaurant. She had already had 3 glasses of wine while waiting on a to-go order, which you know how fast to-go orders are. And I arrived and I had 2 glasses of wine and she had 2 more glasses of wine. So she had 5 glasses of wine within an hour. And her and the commissioner were fighting, and they were text messaging back and forth. They were calling back and forth. I even have her bar bill that shows she had 5 glasses of wine within about an hour of time. It also shows that she had a to-go order for 2 people, so that proves that the commissioner was at her house, plus the fact that I was sitting right there when him and her were calling back and forth, and he was yelling at her to hurry up, and he didn't want her talking to her friend. And anyway, I told her, you know, because she was afraid of him by this point because he was really angry. So I told her, just go to my house so you're safe. That way he doesn't know where you're at. Well, I went ahead and left, and apparently she was trying to rush to catch up to me. And I stopped at the stop sign about a block from my house, and the next thing I know is just bam, I just was hit from the rear, and I just sat there for a moment, got my senses together, got out of the car, and I saw that it was Liz. She had rear-ended me, and she was going at high speed. I now have 5 herniated discs. I have a traumatic brain injury. For 6 months after the accident, I had barely any speech, barely any memory, was unable to do anything. Been out of work for a year and a half now. Has dramatically affected my life. But as soon as she rear-ended me, there was a witness, which I'm not giving his name. I do have his name, his address, his statement, and we both tried to tell her not to leave. We begged her not to leave, and she was the F word. F you, I'm leaving, I gotta get out of here, I'll take care of it later, don't you worry about it, the commissioner will help me take care of this. And she left, and left the scene, left me there with injuries. Well, the witness called the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department came. I told them exactly where Liz went, who she was with, because there was Barb Hamilton, Brady Prue, and the commissioner. She went over to Barb and Brady's house, and that's where they hid the car. The commissioner came and picked her up and took and hid her until she sobered up. Um, she called me on the phone while the cops were still here, cussing me out. F you, why'd you call the cops? Why'd you call the cops? And I said, Liz, I didn't call the cops. The witness called the cops. And I says, you have to take care of this. And the officer says, let me talk to her. So I gave my phone to the officer, and the officer was, Miss Roberts, you have to turn yourself in. You have to come talk to us. Please, you need to come talk to us. And right there on the phone, which I could hear the conversation because you know how phones are, she says, fuck you, catch me if you can. And that is in the police report, catch me if you can, but they blacked out the other part. Then she left, and because she's dating the county commissioner and he was involved that night, the sheriff's department stopped the investigation. They never questioned the witness. To this day, they still haven't questioned the witness who was there that night and saw Liz Roberts, saw how drunk she was. She had 5 glasses of wine in less than an hour while waiting on a to-go order, and she's fighting with, and of course she's also on some kind of Xanax pills, so she was taking those as well. She was definitely drunk, left the scene of the accident, eluded the cops. So now we have the county commissioner who is now aiding and abetting someone who is running from the law. And then they didn't even go arrest her when I told them the exact location where she was because she was with the county commissioner. They refused to go arrest her that night, and they let her, at her convenience, turn herself in, which the commissioner helped her hire an attorney. Weinberg, I think was his name, and which I've heard through the grapevine, Weinberg was having trouble collecting his fees from the commissioner, so I don't know if he ever got paid for his services. But it's ridiculous that with all this evidence, and the state attorney does have the power to put charges on people, they refuse to put charges. They drop the charge of leaving the scene, which they should have when it arrested her that night for drunk, leaving the scene, eluding an officer, and they did nothing. All because she's dating the county commissioner. And I have so many unanswered questions about this whole ordeal. When the officers were called to the scene by the witness, not myself, why didn't the officers question the witness? Why did they not get his statement? Next, why did they not go arrest her when she left the scene of the accident? The witness and I both tried to get her to stay there. All she could do was F you and drove off in her car. She drove over to Barb and Brady's, and the officer, I told the officer, she's over there at Barbara and Brady's, and he refused to go arrest her. He says, we'll just do a bolo. And that's all they did. They didn't go arrest her. They didn't even make any kind of attempt to go arrest her. And then the officer is talking to me, and I get a phone call, and it's from Liz. She's cussing me out because she said I called the cops, which I informed her, no, the witness called the officers. And then the officer took my phone, says, "Miss Roberts, please, we need to talk to you. Please come talk to us." And she actually told the officer, "Fuck you, catch me if you can." And yes, the officer did put "catch me if you can" in the police report. It's all in the police report. Why wouldn't the officer want to go arrest someone knowing that they had 5 glasses of wine, had an accident causing property damage, physical damage, which I'm still under physical damage. I've got traumatic brain injury, I've got 5 herniated discs. The officers did not do their diligent duty to arrest this woman, and then whenever they just sent the simple charge of leaving the scene to the state attorney's office, the state attorney does have the power to press charges, especially when I myself gave them her bar bill proving she had 5 glasses of wine, the fact that she left the scene of the accident, the fact that she did tell the officer, "Catch me if you can," but the state attorney told me, "Oh, well, the officer didn't have his lights going, so that doesn't constitute eluding an officer." But they just didn't want to prosecute, and then they dropped the charges and told me the reason they were dropping charges is because I knew her. Why would they drop charges just because you know someone who did a criminal activity? I mean, there'd be a lot of criminals free today. I mean, and the thing is, I finally pieced it together in my brain that County Commissioner Stephen Deutsch, who's married, having this love affair with Liz Roberts, he did exactly what she said he was going to do, that he would take care of it. So I guess he did take care of it. The officers didn't do their job of arresting her that night. They didn't even attempt to go get her, even though they had the actual address of where she was. But I guess when they found out she was having the love affair with the county commissioner who's married, they weren't going to involve the county commissioner. So I'm wondering what's going on with the investigation. So I called the state attorney's office because I had already sent them the bar bill showing that she had 5 glasses of wine within the period of time it takes to get a to-go order. The state attorney asked me to drop the charges, and I said no, I do not want to drop the charges. I want to prosecute her for leaving a scene of accident. She eluded the officer. She was drunk when she hit me. And they informed me that, well, they couldn't do eluding an officer because the officer didn't have his lights on. And then they were going to drop the charges because leaving the scene, because I knew her. So that didn't mean she left the scene. So what kind of state attorney do we have that, number one, you've got the copy of the bar bill proving that she was intoxicated. You have the fact of the accident, the fact that she left the scene, leaving property damage and physical bodily damage. And when she called me and the officer talked to her directly, and she told the officer, "F you, catch me if you can." I believe when a suspect tells an officer, "Catch me if you can," that constitutes eluding an officer. So why did the state attorney not put those charges on? They have the power to do that. It's their job to protect the public, and they didn't do it. They just left me to rot. So after many phone calls with the state attorney's office and their insistence on dropping the charges, I told them that I would contact the media if they dropped the charges. And it was a short time after that, a few weeks, that I was actually set up on fraudulent charges, and I will discuss all of that next time, but all of this due to the County Commissioner, Stephen Deutsch.